The John Ford Podcast.
The best way to lie is to tell the truth, carefully edited truth. JohnFord.radio.
Well, here we go. It's a John Ford Podcast number 15. I'm going to have to take off my other shoe to get even higher here, starting with the next one. Thanks for joining us for the evening Rancor. So glad you could come along with us today.
Joy, oh, happy day.
You betcha. Today we're going to talk about not the hurricane, although the hurricane is wall-to-wall coverage, and what a nasty hurricane it is.
Yes.
But if you live on the coast in the south, especially Florida, you're going to get a hurricane now and then. Well, this one, according to the forecasts and what they're saying, looks pretty bad. From what I've seen on TV, it looks very windy and wet. I haven't seen a lot of catastrophic damage, though. I mean, they do build things pretty good in Florida. They have pretty good construction laws there. Like where I lived, where I grew up in South Florida, they always had, except for those guys down in Homestead with Andrew, where they put up everything with spit and glue. I mean, the stuff that was made in the early days was made out of, even the wood, it was Dade County pine, which was, literally the most tough wood. It's now extinct because they built all these houses out of it. It's an extinct wood. Kind of the way I feel from time to time.
Yes.
The termites can't even get through it. If you bang a nail into it in the dark, you'll see sparks coming off your nail. That's how tough Dade County pine is. So even a lot of the older homes in South Florida were built to withstand really fierce hurricanes. Anything that was built after like maybe the 1950s was pretty much concrete block and stucco, which is essentially a pillbox. So not a lot of stuff was going to get through that. But anyways, thoughts and prayers going out to those people in Florida. Hey, I've been through so many of them. My heart is with you, and I hope everybody comes out okay. I hope your dogs are okay, and your cats, and your rats, and everything that you have. And I hope that your house is fine, and your boat's good, and everything is just great. But today, I would like to skip past the hurricane and everything else that's going on in the news, and I'd like to talk about a subject that's dear to my heart. Censorship.
My ass.
Yeah, I know. Now, when you get into a discussion, I don't want to call it a debate.
That's right.
On censorship, we have to separate two different things. There is the First Amendment, and the First Amendment of the Constitution, guarantees the right of free speech, that the government cannot encroach on that free speech. And they have tried to step over that many times. You don't have to go back that far in history where you can look at the right trying to censor speech of people on the left or people in the middle or people that they just wanted to go after and perceive that were, on the left. You don't have to go back any further than the 1950s during the Eisenhower administration and that wonderful senator from Wisconsin, I believe it was, right? Yeah. Senator Joe McCarthy and the whole Red Scare thing, especially where people from Hollywood would try to plead the Fifth Amendment. Like as if you should have to try to plead the Fifth Amendment in front of Congress, and he would just shout them down. Anyways, I'm glad, Murrow finally stood up to him, and we got rid of that guy. Eisenhower didn't care for him either. He wanted him gone, even though McCarthy was a Republican. Still doesn't mean you can't recognize a nut on your own side.
That's right.
Unfortunately, today, censorship is coming more from the left than from the right. The social justice warriors have this whole thing of hate speech. Any kind of free speech is going to involve hate speech. If you just have speech that everyone's agreeing with, that's not freedom of speech. That's just agreement. Free speech inevitably is going to offend someone. So the First Amendment essentially guarantees you the right not to have your speech infringed upon by the United States government, which is a different concept from the concept of censorship.
He's right. You're right.
Now, censorship can happen anywhere within the government from without the government. Censorship is denying somebody's right to freedom of speech, although it being done by an individual or a corporation, what have you. And we're seeing more and more of that coming from the left, especially in the social media and the internet space, which I find so bizarre because in the beginning, the internet was all about freedom of the speech. And even Google was, don't be evil, man. And it was all about people having a voice. But now that's all kind of changed up. So when I talk about the First Amendment and freedom of speech, they are two different things. They're two different sides of the same coin. One is protected speech from the government. The other is the concept of just free speech, which I would argue that the Constitution would say is an inalienable right. And Western society in general would say it's an inalienable right. Viva la Lafayette. Now, I'm going to set this up, and some of you are going to hear this and just freaking out. I came across a story yesterday on Breitbart News. Now, before you freak out because I said Breitbart News, this is just another example of censorship. Just because you may not agree with someone or agree with their website or agree with their doctrine or agenda doesn't mean you shouldn't listen to them. There might be something you can learn there. Do I agree with Breitbart News? Probably most of it, no. But I still read their stuff. A lot of it is just hyperbole and propaganda. Some of it occasionally is actually interesting news. Just because something appears on a site that, you may not agree with philosophically or politically doesn't mean that they may not have something there of value. That's just a childish viewpoint. That's like saying, this site wrote something that I don't agree with. Therefore, everything that they write henceforth will be nothing but propaganda and lies, and I will never view that site again. But this is the way a lot of people think. As an example, one of my favorite sites used to be Fark.com. One of the reasons I liked Fark.com was because everything goes. If you're not familiar with Fark.com, it's one of the original news aggregators, and people make up funny headlines and submit stories, and they get approved. I used to pay even for the Total Fark. I was a Total Farker.
Oh.
Excuse me? And Total Fark is where you get to see all the stories, even the ones not approved. The other day, I tried to submit a story to Fark.com from Breitbart. And it came back and it basically said something to the effect of, Fark does not take submissions from that site because it sucks balls. And I'm going to bleep that out because I say this as a clean language podcast. Now here's the thing. They post plenty of things on there from the Huffington Post and what a lot of folks would call the far left. That goes through just fine. But if you try to post something from Breitbart, they won't do it. That is an example of censorship. Now, they have the right to do whatever they want because, Drew owns it, right? It's a private entity. They can do that. It still doesn't mean it's not censorship. Has nothing to do with the First Amendment, but it does have something to do with censorship. Anyways, back to Breitbart. Came across a story on there yesterday. Please read things you don't agree with. If we don't dialogue each other, we'll never get anywhere.
I don't believe it.
It's all I read on. My Twitter feed is just people attacking each other from the left and the right and the in-between and the up and down. And it gets really old, man. If we don't dialogue, if we don't talk to each other, we're not going to learn anything. Don't just assume because somebody holds a different position of you or a different political position as you, that there's nothing that can't be learned from that person. It's like saying just because you're a Christian or a Jew, you can't learn anything from a Hindu or a Muslim. There are probably plenty of things, even from their religion, that you could learn that would be good for you. Back to Breitbart. So, anyways, on Breitbart yesterday, let me actually bring that up on my computer. I will put the link to that on this podcast, so you'll be able to download it. And I'm not going to go into what they talk about, but essentially what happened was a Google employee sent them a leaked memo from Google where Google basically has said, if I get this right, yeah, we admit it, we're publishers, and yeah, we're going to control the dialogue because we think it's the best thing to do. This is very dangerous territory. I'll include the link to not to Breitbart, but to the actual document itself so you can read the document yourself and maybe draw your own conclusions. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, free speech was the ideal of Silicon Valley, where what we know today as the modern internet had its incubation, even though it was really invented by the U.S. military, first off, as ARPANET, and then, a loose confabulation of universities, who always used to be for free speech, but not so much anymore with the social justice warriors. And then later, the World Wide Web invented at CERN in Switzerland. But the big incubator was in Silicon Valley. Now, the briefing argues that Google, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, seeing a big conglomeration there, are caught between incompatible positions. The unmediated marketplace of ideas and well-ordered spaces for civility and safety. You can't have free speech and be safe at the same time. There is no such thing as a safe space from free speech. If people are going to be able to voice their opinions, it's not going to be safe. Hey, there's no such thing as a safe space anyways, man. This is a dangerous freaking world. Tech firms have gradually shifted away from, the unmitigated, unmediated free speech, and they're shifting towards censorship and moderation. If you don't believe this, wait till they come after you, because they will. They've come after me before, and they don't even have to tell you why they're coming after you. Don't even have to tell you why. They just say, you have violated this thing, or one of these things. And they'll send you a list of about 9,000 things, and just get rid of your account. That's what they did to one of my YouTube accounts. Thank God I had another one. Now that's probably going to disappear. Anything that's politicized, and we know from the leaked stuff that has come out before that Silicon Valley, because of, it leans very far to the left. It used to lean more libertarian, but in recent years, it's started to lean more to the left.
Yuck.
Anyways, I will send you this link. Think about censorship. Think about free speech. And by all means, please go out and offend someone today.
I'm the happiest guy,
He's the luckiest guy.
'cause I just bought a new Ford.
From a wonderful dealer.
Wow, what a dealer!
For a Ford or a fine used car.
Liberty? What is liberty?
Freedom.
What is freedom, dumb?
The John Ford Podcast.